The recent report today by Heather Matthews on the situation in which she found two cases, one I think of private legal case being paid for on the minister's behalf, and I think the other one was conflict of interest.
Right. Well, we just saw this, we saw this report maybe an hour ago. So we haven't had time to really study it and digest it. But I have to say, the sense that I got was, in the first place, both these two issues are very crucial to the whole area of good governance. We've heard the government talking about how they are implementing new processes to help with good governance. But clearly, there are still issues that have to be resolved. And I think the most upsetting thing for me about the report of the Auditor General was the lack of cooperation that she is getting from senior government officials. When the Auditor General of this country gets to an impasse with the Attorney General of this country, we've got a big problem, a real big problem. So we have to look at this thing more carefully. But I think that the issues that are raised in this report will have pretty serious ramifications going forward. But we will sort of make a much more considered response when we have a time to study it.
One quick
Let me just weigh in on that, Brian,
Great.
before you go on. Just a few seconds. I think it's important that Bermuda recognize when you hear statements coming from our Auditor General that say misuses, quote, tone at the top, indicate a complete disregard for the concept of good stewardship. When you hear these kind of quotes coming from our Auditor General, amazed, quote, by the lack of commitment to good governance in referring to our government, I think those are signs and signals that should alarm all of us. And we should be asking more questions. I'd like to ask our chairman if he could just come forward. He can say a little more to the this Auditor General's report as well. Chairman Thad, if you can, yeah.
Good afternoon. I'll just make it brief. I've had a chance to have a cursory review over the documents submitted by the Auditor General. And what jumped out at me was not just the government's response, which was blasé and saying, we're working on this and this is being addressed, but the fact that how long the Auditor General's been trying to get answers to this, as recently as December, getting an answer back to say, well, in between the lines, and I'm not a lawyer, but reading the response from the Attorney General's chambers or the Ministry of Justice was, how dare you ask these questions? I find that absolutely disgusting when we're talking about good governance and accountability. And when I read the fact that we have a conflict of interest, that people who are in positions of trust, now this is a quango, and this is to run along the same lines as any business. When you're in a position, and I've been in this position as a member of a board of directors, I don't hire myself as a consultant and then pay myself and then go back to the board and say, oh, by the way, I want retroactive pay for a year. That is not going to happen in good business. For that to have happened, to have been alerted, and to have been allowed to continue, and the response from the government is, well, we've written to them, we feel that this isn't right, and we've asked that this be addressed, is not what I've been hearing as of late from the Minister of Finance, who's also our Premier, about good governance and accountability. This is what we've been talking about in the One Bermuda Alliance, is that this is about accountability. Where is the fairness and equity? Those sort of things should be given to people who are properly qualified, who are Bermudian, and give them the opportunity for this revenue and for these jobs. This isn't about lining our pockets. And I think there's some serious considerations that have been raised that haven't been addressed by the government, and by releasing the document today, and I said I've only had a cursory glance through it, it behooves for the people's business, and I'm talking about the Parliament, to address this, because the government seems to be unwilling to do so.